Well, that was a clean game. Welcome into the Loochador Podcast, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors, where they carry all the best gear from the top brands at all the prices you'll love. And now shopping is more convenient than ever at Academy.com on the Academy app as well. Enjoy free shipping on orders of $25 or more with sign-in, plus easy in-store curbside pickup. Shop anytime, anywhere, and find our widest selection of colors, styles, and sizes, from grills to fitness equipment to workout clothes. Everything you need to have fun out there is right here at Academy.com. He's Billy Liucci. I'm David Nuño, and we put the mask on again.
Good. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as Meatloaf says, but it needs to be better. And I thought it looked better on Saturday, and I know the opponent. Do you remember when in wrestling back in the 80s, in the 90s, whatever, when you'd have a masked wrestler, and the whole world would know it was like the Junkyard Dog? He was Stagger Lee, was his guy that would come in, and then these other guys that would come in a mask, and when they were like suspended or they snuck back in. And then there would be just this big mask ripoff. And then it would be, oh my God, it's Liucci. He's back. Good God, it's Liucci.
Sweat.
Well, we had to take that off. Those things are hot. They don't tie up good, but we won. Right. It was a good performance, I thought, yesterday. I think there was certain things that you just couldn't learn that we're going to, project out. Just like, I think if anything, if you were trying to project, if you're worried that much about projecting how this ends up, you were going to just be kind of looking for the negative that scared you out of it. And there were a couple things we'll talk about in a minute, but all told, what encouraged me the most about yesterday, first of all, New Mexico and ULM, they beat the crap out of bad teams. Mm-hmm. They took care of them early. There was no doubt. They were over at halftime. That's the benefit of having a good offense, by the way. Because no matter how good your defense plays, if you're giving up 3 or 7 points in the first half and your offense isn't getting up past like 13, or if you're up 17-10 at half, it just doesn't – it feels uncomfortable even if you know you're going to win. We've seen it with Sam Houston. We saw it with like Texas State. We saw it at one point, I believe, with New Mexico. We saw it with I'll go back years and years. You saw it with Kent State. You saw it with, I'll go back to McNeese State, where that was in doubt with Seth in the fourth quarter of the game. I like to give him a hard time about. We saw it with Nicholls State the week after A&M lost to UCLA. They were in may have been a tie game in the fourth quarter with Nicholls State. Like, Nicholls, by the way, is not ULM. I mean, we saw it with ULM in Kyle Allen's first start. So, and then not to mention the lost games like Arkansas State and App State. I think App State's on a different level. But I'll say this. We've seen them struggle to look overly impressive or to put away bad teams where you walk away just not feeling as good about it. I'm not saying it's all sunshine and roses after yesterday, but I do think they did exactly what I'd hoped to see them do. If you want to break down the how and how that I like this, I didn't like that, we'll do that in a minute. But just in general, to come out and whip up on a team. And by the way, David, I think ULM's a lot better than New Mexico. They beat Army a couple weeks ago. I think they've got a better coach in Terry Bowden. The New Mexico coach likely to be fired after this year. ULM better cut of athlete that they recruit to out of Louisiana than what New Mexico can. So a better opponent, but still not a good opponent by any stretch. And A&M dusted them. And that's what you want to see. And here's the deal. I was worried about their mental state. I wasn't worried about them losing. I was worried about their mental state. Like, I heard, practice Monday wasn't the best. You kind of understand it. You don't want to hear that, but you kind of understand, like, the Monday practice was kind of a drudgery. As the week went on, it got better. You heard about some guys that were banged up in that Miami game, and there were a lot of them. A lot of them played banged up, too. That was a physical. Like I said last week, they lost the physical battle to Miami. And there was some, there was a little bit of, trail of bodies left in the wake. So there were some guys that missed this game. I think once Basantis and Noah went out, you were playing without a half dozen starters. doesn't make a difference against ULM whether you win or lose, but it could, that and a hangover could make a difference in how well you come out, how much you engage the crowd early and kind of thank them for, hey, thanks for coming out and sticking with us. Great crowd yesterday considering the loss and the weather. It could affect a hangover and a slow start and kind of a sluggish performance. And it didn't. I thought they looked sharp. They looked like they wanted to be there. The guys that were playing had great energy. So that to me was the first sign that, okay, these guys they're wanting to bounce back from the loss. And look, if you quit after one loss, then you shouldn't be playing at Texas A&M anyway. But across all sports, you see teams have hangovers after emotional defeat. And when you don't, it does tell you a little something. Again, this is the thing. You'll have some jackass listening. It's unfortunate because 99 out of 100 people aren't jackasses, but you'll have some jackass saying this is sugarcoating or whatever. This is reality. And if they lose another game, you don't have to go back and say that we sat here and, pumped sunshine after a win over ULM, because we're not. But what we saw yesterday was good. And if you don't like that, then I think you should stop watching this or whatever.
Are you watching the rest of the SEC?
Yeah, what we saw yesterday was good. How does it project? There's good and bad. And I think we're about to dive into that. But, yeah, like what you just said, right?
I mean, Georgia's struggling with South Carolina for a half. There's stories all around the SEC.
It's going to be that kind of year. The SEC is mortal this year. They're like the rest. They are. I never say that. I always think other conferences try to nitpick things about the SEC to try to prove that they're top-heavy or they're not really that much better. And that has never been defensible, in my opinion.
Look at Florida beating Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
South Florida really having a chance to beat Bama. I know they lost by 2 scores. They had a chance to win that
game. They
game.
had the ball midway through the fourth quarter down 7.
Yep.
Okay? Against Alabama. Alabama is shaky as they've ever been since Nick Saban's first year there. And I've been saying that. I'm not always right. Neither are you, neither is anyone. But I've been right about that. That program has done this to come back to the pack in the last 3 seasons. It's boom, 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 and here we are. Tennessee looked really bad. Those are 2 games on the A&M schedule that when the day came when you were watching A&M lose to Miami, raise your hand if you thought, man, this team's going to get rolled by Alabama and Tennessee. And then you see Bama against Texas, and then you see Tennessee this week. You see Tennessee in a dogfight with Austin Peay at halftime. You see Bama in South Florida. Look, LSU looked really damn good this week.
They did.
Guess who looked really damn bad? Mississippi State and Will Rogers. Square peg, round hole thing starting to develop over there. So even on the team that looked really good that you don't play until final game, they made Mississippi State look bad at home. So then Ole Miss is kind of a question. All right, they're beating Georgia Tech and Tulane barely without their starting quarterback. Ole Miss is a mystery. But man, South Carolina, they gave it a game effort against Georgia, but then also shut out in the second, got outscored 21-0 in the second half. The West is there for the taking for anyone. Arkansas loses to BYU at home. The West is there for the taking for anyone, including A&M. I mean, right now LSU looks like the class of it, but a lot of that's because they were competitive with Florida State for a half. Did you see Florida State Saturday?
They barely beat.
Are you going to fight me over saying that Miami might be on the level of Florida State? Is that an unthinkable comment right there? I don't believe it is. I think Florida State's better from just watching the teams play. But is it Miami or Duke that's the second best team in the ACC?
I don't think it's Clemson.
Doesn't seem like it. So, point being, David, I think it's open there for anyone. So the question we need to ask ourselves today is, did A&M take any? Did we learn anything about A&M yesterday that'll tell us whether they're capable of contending there or whether they're not capable? And I think that's the discussion.
I'll tell you something I learned. Shamar Turner is living up to what you thought he would be doing this year. He's got 3 sacks on the year. I know we're not getting a lot of pressure, and against ULM, you're not going to get a lot of pressure.
Yeah, they throw for 100 yards a game for a reason.
But he's already got 3.
Yeah. He's gotten 3 sacks. He plays hard. He's physical up there. Most of that D-line is physical. They didn't get a lot of pressure. You'd like to have walked away feeling better about it, but ULM just didn't really give you that opportunity. Even their deep shots, it's like 3-step drop, chuck it, fade routes, And look, what did I like and what was I concerned with? Let's start with the defense. Here's what I did. Here's what I saw from the fans and my friends standing next to me at the beginning of the game. Freak the F out when they come out in a 3-man front to start the game. I don't. Okay? Like, I will get annoyed and aggravated and think it's bad coaching if A&M. And there might be if you're going to spend a lot of time in 3-man front in a game, then you better be real successful in that game. And if you're not, I think you set yourself up for a lot of criticism considering the D-line talent versus the back 7. If you start the game in that formation against a certain team and you run it from time to time, it's not – people are just ready, I think, to freak out about the defense. And I get it after watching Miami score 40-plus on you. And then people freaked out on a deep completion against Deuce Harmon, who you were essentially playing without 3 corners yesterday. And maybe the 3 would be ahead of Deuce. I thought Deuce adjusted after getting beat. That was a great throw, by the way.
Yeah, it was.
Great throw, good catch. He adjusted after that, and they tested him more, and he held up. But you're watching ULM look at it and say, we can take deep shots on these corners. That concerns me. They completed one. Then there was one play where it was really bad tackling. And then they had a big play where it was a clear bust in assignment when the quarterback went around the left side for a big gain. Those 3 plays probably accounted for half their offense of 220 yards, 3 snaps. They kept testing A&M down the field. They didn't have much success after that. But it's tough to walk away feeling any bit good about it because it's ULM. And they do throw for 100 yards a game. And they had 100 at halftime, and they didn't believe they had 0.
They finished with 95 for the game.
And they had 95 at halftime, I believe. I don't think they had a passing yard in the second half. So, look, your defense held an opponent out of the end zone. They gave up 3 points. And, they gave up 3 points and 220 yards. I don't think there was much bad, especially when you think that 3 plays consumed damn near half their offense. But with that said, you wanted to see more pressure if you could. You would love to see a defense force turnovers, which you didn't. And you would love to, you saw guys get behind the defense and you sitting there, and I'm with anyone that looked at it and goes, what if that was an SEC receiver and quarterback? So there was no way I was going to walk out of this game going, man, I feel so much better about the
Nothing could have happened.
Yeah. It can happen this week, and it'll happen the next week. So DJ Durkin versus Hugh Freeze next week, and Durkin versus KJ Jefferson, and these defenders versus KJ Jefferson, and again, the X's and O's, Freeze, Durkin next week. These are the tests. These are the upcoming tests that A&M has to pass. They passed last night's with flying colors. I would have liked to have seen a little more like death and destruction out there. But they played a fine game. They played a good game. They didn't just, like I said, it wasn't just like ULM guys are scared to take the field. But if you're critiquing this one for what they did on the field, you're nitpicking. They gave up like 3-4 meaningful plays the whole game. If you're trying to project it, I understand, like, my level of concern for the secondary was up here. After the game, it's still up here, but we watched them play without Tyreek Chappelle. Jordan Gilbert, which I'll get back to that in a second. So 2 starters in your secondary were out. Tony Grimes didn't play again. And how much did Javon Thomas play? I haven't done a rewatch yet. I don't remember seeing him. He was banged up during the week. I knew he was like kind of a question mark heading in. So you were without minimum, at best, at worst, you were without 2 of your top 3 corners and a starting safety. So kind of tough to try to analyze and project that out. But there were some things I did like on defense, Nuño. I liked the physicality. I liked up front. There weren't a lot of missed tackles. There was one play where there was like 3, right. And it was just like, oh my God. And but it wasn't like, I don't know, it's a different kind of athlete. But there weren't a lot of missed tackles. And they looked like they were mentally like determined to have more guys get to the football. They got the message, I'll say. The mentality was right. I liked, and I know it was, I'd say it was intentional. I mean, I'd say it was because of the injury to Gilbert, but I think it was also going to happen either way because you saw him a little more against Miami. But more Jacoby Matthews, to me, is a very, very good thing. I love the idea of Jacoby Matthews and Bryce back there. As time goes on, I think you might see more Dalton Brooks, who we saw some yesterday. Mm-hmm. That was encouraging, and we also saw, and I'm with you guys freaking out about dropping Fidel into coverage, or was it Overton another time? Like that position as Fidel, Overton.
I saw Perkins do it for LSU yesterday, too.
Yeah, Eni White. It's that position. Perkins, though, is more of like a conventional linebacker that shouldn't.
Right.
But that's what he does. He did it last year. People freaked out a couple weeks ago when Anthony Lucas was doing it at USC. I don't love it, even though Eni almost had a pick. What I did like, though, is we did see more of 92 and 6 and kind of, I saw them lining up, at times in a 2-point stance. I saw Malik Silla in there. So that and the Jacoby Matthews thing, AKA personnel changes, not benching guys, just personnel changes and getting more athletes and speed on the field. That was probably my biggest source of encouragement on a day where there wasn't a lot to really gain from what you saw from defense.
So for a moment, to stick with that theme, when we came into the season, the biggest areas of concern, and there were several, but the biggest were stopping the run and overall offense. Mm-hmm. There were some other ones. We want to see the line grow. I understand that. But those are some real big issues.
Yeah.
So far, the offense, not a problem. We'd like to see more of a running game, sure. But overall offense, not an issue. Stopping the run, I think they're 35th in the country, and teams are averaging under 100 yards a game on them. I think it's 95.
Yeah.
So regardless of the competition, they have taken – because last year didn't matter. Teams ran on them.
And the big one was Miami.
Yeah.
And I know Miami was throwing on you. We'll call it at will. Like it was, they shredded them. But Miami tried to establish the run, and they wanted to run the football, and they damn sure would have wanted to run it and just wear you down in that fourth quarter and put the game away when it started to become a little of a track meet. So Miami, they wanted to run the ball. So in the one real test, I thought the Aggies actually had their best performance. They did statistically had their best performance against the run. So I'm encouraged a great deal on that front. In terms of the offense, yeah, man, and I guess we could transition over to that. Look, they've got a superstar in the making at quarterback. And I was watching that game yesterday down there with Johnny, so it's fun watching him watch a quarterback.
Yeah.
And, and I'll let him come on here one day and we can talk about it and what he sees. But he just loved the competitor in him and just the willingness to just throw it down the field and not be scared to do that and tuck it and run. We were watching him run that touchdown in, and just that he, those are the ways that he reminds you of Johnny. And a lot of, whether it's Johnny or Mahomes, these quarterbacks that they're just play without much, if any, fear. And they're gunslingers out there. And, whether they can run or what, but, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, these quarterbacks they're going to let it rip. And they can see, and you really watch Wigman, if you watch him from field level, you really see the vision and how fast he's okay when the speed of the game gets turned up.
His vision with pressure, to me, is the most impressive thing I see. He's got an option here. He's got an option here. He's got two guys coming at him. He'll look down the field, survey it, and find a Nias or whomever, or Jake, and without fear.
Yeah, no, some of the hits he's taken this year already and not scared at all. And to still make accurate throws. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're quick, but a lot of times they're still down the field where he's stepping into them knowing that inspires an offense. It inspires teammates. It makes the receivers want to make better because you saw a Nias catch one and just get stuck in the back, and those are things you love to see. And I think that type of thing is contagious. And look, the offense has been as good as advertised. They scored 33 against Miami, and some people, and I think it's fair to say, well, 14 of them were kind of given. You say given, but I say they turned red zone starts into touchdowns.
Opportunities, yeah.
There were a couple times when they didn't. They scored 33 in that game. I mean, I think they play that thing not a second time, but I mean, you look at how close they were. I mean, the pick there at the end on 4th and 10, but really those two where Evan comes up just short of the sticks, and then they have a false start, and then they were that close with that just to being well over 40.
Yep.
And so this offense is really damn good. I'm with you. I'd like to see a little more success running in the running game.
Second half is better though.
Well, listen, here's if you want to be encouraged. First of all, they were without Bryce. Mark Naboo can play.
Yep.
Here's the O-line wasn't. I don't think they were great, but they're still protecting Connor. How many times has Connor been sacked in 3 games? And I know part of that is him, but how many times has he been sacked? Twice yesterday. I think none against Miami. I don't even know if Connor was sacked twice yesterday. That might have been Jake.
Sacked once for a 4-yard loss.
So Connor was sacked once. He was sacked none against Miami.
And it was in that play that he almost had a very narrow pathway to run through, and they got him.
Yeah. So he's been sacked 2 or 3 times in 3 games. And again, part of that's him, and he gets a ton of that credit. But the O-line has been better. Do they need to get better? Yeah, for sure. But there is an improvement up there. But here's what I liked about the O-line Saturday. Bryce didn't start, and Basantis got banged up. How much did you see Fathery out there?
I don't remember seeing him.
I don't see him. Okay, so you had Crown over, and that's with Deuce still probably not being all the way back. And you still were able to go 6 and 7 on you were able to absorb 2 injuries and still come out fine. Who's this? You were able to absorb two injuries and come out fine. That we have not been able to say about A&M for a long time. So that was encouraging up front. But what I really loved about the offense Saturday was, again, how many drives in a row to start the game did they score?
One of the first 7 drives that they scored on?
In New Mexico, it was like the first 5.
Yep.
That is the sign of a well-prepared, well-coached offense. And they started hot against Miami, too.
First 2 drives against Miami, they scored.
So we have not seen that for a couple, if not few years here. I think maybe 2020, that offense was a good starting one at times, but really impressed with what I've seen offensively. And I think, here's the thing, I think they can get a lot better. So we were talking about the running game. I want to see that get better, but guess what? No, Amari ran pretty well against Miami.
Yeah.
Nothing special, but he pretty well against Miami. And then Saturday, this was exciting to me.
The third quarter, buddy, I'm looking at it right now.
Yep.
8 attempts for 65 yards, and that's when Le'Veon came into the game.
Which is what I was going to say. Le'Veon and Reuben Owens. Okay, so they need Amari Daniels. Mm-hmm. The way he runs and how tough he is, they need him. He is a follow my lead kind of guy in terms of the toughness. But Le'Veon Moss and Reuben Owens are exceptionally talented SEC running backs. They could be like high-end SEC backs. And what happened yesterday is they combined for 16 carries for basically 100 yards. They had 99 yards between them. Is that right?
Ruben Owen, 51 yards and 46 yards for Le'Veon, and both of them, 16. So there you go.
So 97, 16 for 97. So roughly 100 yards on 16 carries for them. Those guys, when they get it going, I think are going to be really good this year. So they took a big step, not because of the opponent, but just to get those touches and produce like they did. We saw Owens get in the end zone for the first time. That was a big development. Kind of one of those circle that one, file it away as we go into SEC play.
I had written on my notes as maybe 3 plays before, he is a step away from breaking one of these because it feels like every time, one step away.
You could hear the crowd.
And then it happened.
And the other thing I really liked offensively outside of Wigman was spectacular. But without Evan and without Noah, guess what happened as a result? And hopefully it was by design too. They did what we talked all week and what we said all week we wanted to see. There was Ainias Smith. 7 for 127 down the field. We saw a couple of carries for him out of the backfield. They are going to be at their best when Ainias Smith is heavily involved in the offense. I'm not saying that needs to come. I think Evan Stewart and Noah Thomas are game changers. But you've got to have Ainias actively involved, heavily involved in the offense. And then I think it makes things even that much better for those two guys. And so that was pretty exciting to see. That was very encouraging. And the other thing, quietly, David, can you pull up the Miami stats?
I'm going to find it.
You pull up Miami game stats. And what I want to get to is in the season opener, Aggie tight ends, Jake Johnson caught 1 pass for no yards. It was a no gain completion to Jake. That was it at tight end in game 1. How many did they catch combined against Miami?
Jake had 3, and who else am I looking for? Max 1 for 18.
And how many did Jake have yards?
Jake had 3 for 22, Max 1 for 18.
4 for 40.
Okay,
and then this week, the tight ends went for 6 for 36 and 2 for 28. So 64, 8 for 64 and 4 for 40. So 12 catches for over 100 yards in the last 2 games. So you're averaging about 6 catches for 50 yards now the last couple games for the tight ends. So you're starting to see them get involved. And by the way, definitely worth noting that Jake Johnson caught 6 passes yesterday. So Ainias, circle that. Jake, circle that. Le'Veon, Ruben combined him for basically 100 yards, circle that. Those are things that, as this offense keeps going, if they can continue to build on that, then I think the plays you're going to see Connor, Evan, Noah make, and what that could mean moving forward. This offense could be, and people outside of us are saying this, this is one of those things when they come out and struggle. You guys, some of y'all, and it's like this percent are freaking beat down. But so it's like I feel like sometimes we're talking to them too much. But the reality is other people around the conference and country are taking notice of number 15, number 1, number 3, the offense in general, the Bobby Petrino effect. But you look at how much better they could be, and certain things you can check and look at and say, okay. And I didn't even mention the guy I want to talk about in a minute.
Jordan Rogers on SEC Nation before the game against ULM said, I think Connor Wegman is playing at the highest level quarterback in the SEC. That used to not happen here. I'm sorry, people are noticing.
I mean, Jaden Daniels might have changed that opinion
after the game
with the way he played Saturday against a much better opponent, SEC opponent. But I thought, Wigman, if it's Jaden Daniels, it's Wigman right there too, and it might be Connor. But to me, I've watched the SEC so far, and the guys that really stand out when you watch these teams play are Daniels, Wigman, Jackson
Dart's had a good start.
Those are the 3 to me, and Rattler's good, but just we've got a career body of work that says he's going to run very hot and cold. I mean, we've got years of evidence there. I think these 3 are kind of standing out right now, and A&M has one of them. And by the way, the one A&M has is by far the least experienced of that group. So his room to grow is astronomical. And I mean grow within this season. I mean week to week to week. So that's really exciting. I'll tell you what else is exciting. I wish I would have tweeted this out. Wasn't sending there before the game. Wi-Fi Kyle Field still sucks, but I was going to send out a tweet saying, hey, with Evan Stewart out, watch out for Ja'Day Walker. He's a guy that's just, been so impressive since he got here, not only on the field but within the locker room. You watched him a couple plays before his touchdown throw, a terrific block. I think it was to Spring Anias, and then comes down, gets his first A&M touchdown.
The duck dance.
Dude had 100-yard to the duck. I love the dance there, and had a 100-yard game.
Yeah.
I mean,
by halftime.
How about that? Yeah, your third game at A&M, and you have 5 catches, 110 yards, and a score. What a great story! And by the way, he's not just a great story. He can do that against good teams. He's a 6'3 plus, almost 6'4 receiver with good speed, who plays hard, who will set a tone as a blocker, which they need that mentality. So I think, again, I think that you're seeing now, you saw a third, we know what Anias can do, but you saw a third and a fourth receiver show they can go out there and do it at a high level. And we know Moose can too. And so I think that'll come, whether it's this weekend against Auburn or whenever. In summary of that, before we talk about next week, they got to get healthy.
Yeah.
You got Auburn and Arkansas and Bama coming up in a row, and then Tennessee. Like, they got to get healthy. I don't know about like Besantis and Noah, but it didn't seem like. I think you'll have most of those guys back. Let's put it this way: Evan, Noah,
Bryce,
Chappelle and Foster were suited up. Javon Thomas was suited up. So I think you'll see most of them be able to go Saturday against Auburn, but they need them. They need guys to be healthy and back. That would be pretty significant, especially early in the season. As the year goes on and you start to suffer some attrition, so does everybody else. If you get too much early in the year, sometimes you're at it's a
big
significant disadvantage or significant swing there if one team's healthy and one's not. So they need to get guys back and practicing and on the field Saturday because, my God, I mean, Auburn's 3-0. They've played 2 dogs, absolute dogs. Was it UMass and Samford?
And
then Cal. And that 14-10 against Cal. They played 2 dogs in Sam and Cal. But they're 3-0. They're confident. And I'm going to tell you something about Auburn, a little history lesson that I know everybody knows. The last time they had a first-year head coach, they came to Kyle Field. They beat Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans and the Aggies. They went on to play for the national title again with Gus Malzahn as their coach. And they had a dual-threat quarterback by the name of Nick Marshall. I'm not saying Auburn's going to play for the national title. They don't look like that. But Gus had a hell of a lot of success in year one. And I think, if you're not careful, that team can certainly come in here Saturday and open up SEC play 1-0 at A&M's expense. And that would be a really, really bad loss with what lies ahead to sit there at 2-2 through 4 games. But I think A&M at home, I like the Ags' chances on Saturday. I don't care if they win. I mean, it's going to be really stressful if they win by a point. If they win by a point or if they win impressively.
Survive in advance.
Yeah, but it would be great to see the Aggies come out and play 4 quarters of really good football against an SEC opponent. And you look at Arkansas, they're very beatable. I mean, BYU showed that, but they looked very beatable before that. They're having a whereas A&M's transition to Bobby Petrino. Okay, can we go back?
Sure.
A&M and Bobby Petrino and what's happening with that offense. Alabama and Tommy Rees.
Clemson and Garrett Riley.
Arkansas and Enos. And then even, look,
Mike
South
Bobo.
Carolina looked good. Yeah, Mike Bobo at Georgia. South Carolina looked good on the first couple drives, but then they were shut out. And what North Carolina did, sacking him 9 times, look at the coordinator hires right now. A couple of them that really stand out. Unfortunately, one of them's in Miami with Shannon Dawson, but another one's here in College Station with Bobby Petrino. So you would love to see the Aggies come out and cook on Saturday and play really well, because then you're going into an Arkansas game again, like I said, it's very winnable. You win Saturday, and probably be a slight favorite in that game, unless Arkansas beats LSU, which I don't think so. I think they're more likely to get beat up down there in Baton Rouge and be coming in with 2 losses in a row. This is a real opportunity Saturday for A&M to exponentially help their chances in the next game. And then you handle that business, and you got, for the first time that we could ever say it, a wounded Bama coming in.
By that point, they should figure out something, don't you think? Bama will figure out Milroe.
Well, I think what they're going to figure out is they're going to have to go back to Milroe.
Yep.
Okay.
Not worried about that.
Probably more scary than Buckner or Ty Simpson, but still, it's still a problem for them. I think, I'm not saying A&M will beat Bama at home, but I think if the Aggies can win these next 2, they'll certainly have a great chance to win that game at Kyle Field with this crowd and a confident football team. They got to win this one Saturday, though, because I think it sets up. I've circled Arkansas as the most important of this stretch, because I think everything just sets you up for bigger and better things moving forward. And you lose one that you quote unquote shouldn't, and man, it makes it look pretty damn daunting to have the kind of season that we hope to see and that we said A&M needs to see. And for me, that was 9 wins and a bowl win. That's what I thought would be a noticeable step.
But that scenario could still be exactly the same way you thought it, just in a different hierarchy, with Miami potentially being, and again, this is all hypothetical at this point, Miami maybe being a higher caliber of team than you expected. Tennessee maybe not being the team you thought on the road. They can still throw deep, and that's a problem. Alabama not being the team that you thought. So all those things are still in play, except it might have been moved around in the hierarchy of the teams that you're taking on.
Yeah, and look, I'm not sitting here saying A&M looks better than a lot of these teams we're talking about, but you're trying to figure out, hey, what we've seen from this team, what games are winnable,
better it can be,
and they all, what games are winnable. Well, A&M's going to go into most of these games with a better quarterback. First of all, that's a great place to start. Secondly, you look around and go, where would Miami rate right now on A&M's schedule? I wouldn't have thought I'd say that Miami might, if Alabama went to South Florida yesterday and almost lost, not to the other team in South Florida, but to actual South Florida.
Right.
If they played like they did yesterday, Miami would have handled them.
One on them.
And I'm not saying that Miami's great, but they're good. They're at the worst, they're a good, solid team, and they might be better than that. So, I don't want to overhype them. We've done this so many times as people that, not just us, but everywhere around the country, everybody jumps too far, too quick. I'm not talking about Colorado where everyone's just completely jumped the shark, where they just beat a really bad Colorado State team and took a miracle to do it. And I think Colorado's a great story. It's a very different thing going on. That's kind of almost separate. But we see media every year overrate a team early. We've seen them do it to A&M in the past at times. South Carolina, Kenny Trill, but with that said, I do think you watch Miami play and you go, that's a good team. And they might not be great. They're good at a minimum. And where would they rank in the SEC right now? I mean, you keep Georgia there, you keep LSU, even though they lost to Florida State pretty handily.
Right under LSU?
It might be. Based on what you've watched with
I haven't
your
seen
eyes.
enough from
Maybe
Ole Miss
but again, Ole Miss is weird because they were lucky to beat Tulane. They needed the ex-Aggie, Caden Davis, to hit a 59-yarder to not give the ball back to Tulane near midfield to possibly lose the game. And That was without their star quarterback.
Yeah.
So anyway, the whole thing, the league is very interesting. It's very wide open, but there's an opportunity right now for A&M, and nobody's really going to give much of a damn outside of College Station if they go beat Auburn on Saturday morning. It's not going to be a headline maker throughout what's going to be a great day of college football. But if they do, you go, okay, it's 2 wins in a row since Miami. They're going into Arkansas with confidence against a team that they, I think, match up fairly well with, and will have, and are, should be better than, even if it's slight and even if we know how close those games are. You're going in there, let's just say at the very least, with a real chance to win, much better than a puncher's chance. You should go in there. You start to see where this team can get some momentum, and this is like one of those deals, David, where like we watch like combat sports, right? Boxing or MMA, where you got clipped in the first round. And you were on the ropes and you almost got KO'd in that first 2 minutes. And you just got to survive the rest of that round, get to that corner and regroup. And if A&M can win this weekend, I think they will have regrouped from Miami. I'm not saying it makes up, but no. I'm saying I think they will have taken that haymaker and kind of regrouped. And you'll see a very confident team going up to Arkansas and even probably coming back home against Alabama. So this was just this game yesterday to me was just a confidence. How bad do you want to be out there? Is football, did you mope around all week, or is playing out there on Saturday fun? And they looked like they were having fun. They looked like they were determined to go out there and have a good performance, and they did.
All right, that's the Loochador Podcast. We will see you here on TexAgs Radio Monday morning. Thanks so much. Thanks to Academy.